Welcome back to another episode of BreBre Talks MMA. Secret Joys. I love Paulo Costa. I'm a really big Paulo Costa fan. I'm a really big Sean Strickland fan. You know, they're up there in my top 25, I would say. So today's episode is going to be UFC 302 full card breakdown and predictions. So not going to do like a full-on breakdown of every single fight, but basically the first two fights, I will cover those first because those are probably going to be the most in-depth, and then I'll do an overview of each of the other fights. And if there are fights that I'm like really familiar with a certain fighter, then I'll probably dive deeper into it. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do today. And I kind of took a little break from doing content because I was really burnt out. I had a lot going on in my personal life. I had a lot going on just like in general. I was covering a lot of events at the same time, and that was fine. Like, I don't mind working. Like, work takes me away from my problems, so I like working, which is why I got burnt out, because I was using work to like escape from my problems, and that's not how it works. Just be honest with yourself and honest with the people around you about, you know, just the fact that like you have goals in life that you have to accomplish, and if they are in the way, sorry, you don't get to have access to me anymore. So anytime you get to the point where you feel like there are people in the way of your success, then that is time to have a conversation with them, or just don't give them access to you anymore, depending on, you know, your relationship with this person. But anyways, so let's pull up UFC 302. I'm so excited for this, and this is in Newark, New Jersey. My allergies are horrible. Sorry, guys. UFC 302, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier is the main event. This is for the lightweight championship. Like I said, this card is going to be taking place at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And it's really going to be cool because Jim Miller is supposedly going to be making his debut, I think, doing the weigh-in show for this card. So I guess that would be tomorrow that he's going to be doing that. So yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, I think Jim Miller, I think he might be from New Jersey. So that's probably why he's doing it there. But yeah, I remember somebody pointed that out on one of my episodes, that he was going to be doing that, which is really cool because I really do think that Jim Miller should be like a commentator. They're giving him like a small role, I guess, to intro him into the broadcast team, which is awesome. But let's get into this card because I am really excited. This isn't, guys, we just got done with UFC 300, UFC St. Louis. This card doesn't feel like a pay-per-view card, I'll be honest. It doesn't feel very stacked. There are a lot of great fights, and there's a lot of names on here that I'm very familiar with, but it just doesn't have that pay-per-view feel that I'm used to after all the amazing fights we've had. You know, I don't know. I thought the Brazil card was more stacked than this one, but I don't know. But anyways, let's start with the main event. Let's just go backwards. And normally I start from like the first fight of the night, but I kind of want to try something different because this fight has been on my brain so much. Like, I'm psychotic with this stuff. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. I can't get it out of my head. And that's why I'm really excited to talk about it, because there's a lot of things that I've found that like kind of changed my mind about things after like rewatching fights multiple times and just kind of doing my research. Yeah, I mean, my opinion is still pretty much the same, but there are some avenues for each fighter that I've found that I didn't notice before. So the first film study that I did, well, let's just go through the stats. Let's start there. So let me go to the matchup. it's always hard to find like the most accurate websites for these. So I'm on UFCstats.com right now. It's usually pretty accurate, but the statistics, I will say, like, that's not the end all be all. Like, you cannot count on statistics when you're predicting MMA fights because the statistics, they're not always accurate. And yeah, I mean, I don't even know how they come up with these, to be honest. So if somebody could explain that to me, how they come up with these stats, I would be very interested to learn. I would assume they have some type of AI that does this, but I don't know. I could be wrong. It could be some guy that just watches all these fights and counts how many times they get punched in the face. I don't know. Okay, so Islam Makhachev is currently the 155 champion, and he is 25-1, so he only has one loss in his career. He has an average fight time of 9 minutes, 46 seconds. He is 5'10". He weighs 155 pounds, obviously. His reach is 70 inches. He is a southpaw. And then Dustin Poirier, he is 30-8 with one no contest. He has an average fight time of 9 minutes and 53 seconds. He is 5'9". He weighs 155 pounds. He has also fought at featherweight though, and he is a southpaw. How old is Dustin Poirier? I think he's 35, maybe. Let me look it up. Hold on a second. He's also from Lafayette, Louisiana, which is where my friend Sam Primo is from. And Dustin Poirier donated to Sam Primo, the Good Fight Foundation donated to Sam Primo so that he could get a stem cell treatment because he can't walk. He's in a wheelchair. He was in a motorcycle accident when he was 17, and he's been trying to, like, be able to walk again. So yeah, I thought that was really cool that Dustin was willing to do that for him because they're from the same town. They're both from Lafayette, Louisiana. Also, Dustin Poirier trains at ATT, so he is from Louisiana, but he trains in Coconut Creek, Florida at American Top Team. And I saw he's been training with Dakota Bush. I believe I saw he was training with Gamrot and Grant Dawson. So I think that's really cool because those are a lot of very high-level grapplers. So that is exactly who he should be training with. And that gives me a little bit more confidence in Dustin Poirier, knowing that he is training with such good grapplers, because I saw how Grant Dawson was able to kind of coach Dakota Bush when he was fighting here. And you could tell the difference in the level of grappling at American Top Team. It's on a different level. Not only that, but they have like Kayla Harrison, and it's just, yeah, American Top Team they've got some solid grapplers. They may not be Dagestani grapplers, but they have some solid grapplers there. And Dustin Poirier, how old is he? He is 35. Yeah, I was right. Okay, so let's actually get into the statistics. So they're both southpaws. That's really interesting because Islam doesn't have a ton of experience fighting southpaws. He fought Drew Dober, and I think there might have been one other southpaw or maybe a switch stance. Like Dan Hooker, I think, kind of plays in both stances. But overall, most of Islam's opponents have been orthodox, including Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira. Most of them have been orthodox. That is one thing that I'm kind of curious about, since Islam is not used to fighting southpaws. I think that makes a bigger difference than people think. Like, if you're not used to fighting southpaws, it's a big difference. Like, big difference. So, and I'm not saying that Islam can't do it. Of course, like, I'm still probably going to pick him to win, but also Dustin does have a 2-inch reach advantage, which, that could work well for him, with him being more of a boxer. And not only is Dustin a great boxer, but he also has a really good ground game. It's not as good as Islam, I will say. It's not there, but he does have it. He's never pulled off that guillotine, though, so I don't know if I want to see that from him. I don't think Dustin Poirier is going to win this fight with grappling. I think he just needs to be able to defend the grappling, which that's a whole skill set in itself. Let's look at the striking statistics, because I think this fight actually will come down to the striking. And strikes landed per minute for Islam Makhachev are 2.46 and 5.45 for Dustin Poirier. So there is a significant difference in the strikes landed per minute for each of these fighters. And I think the reason why is because Islam is very patient. He picks his shots. He lands with high accuracy. And Dustin Poirier, he throws a lot more. He likes to get, he's not a brawler, but he does kind of like to get in those firefights. He likes to get in those wars. And that's why he's such a big fan favorite, because he's so entertaining to watch. People love watching Dustin Poirier. So yeah, so he sacrifices a little bit of accuracy because he throws so many punches. And Islam Makhachev has a 60% overall striking accuracy. That's actually really high. And Dustin Poirier has a striking accuracy of 51%. It's not terrible. Like, that's actually pretty good. So they both have a pretty good striking accuracy. I just think that Islam is definitely the more precise striker. And he's also a very good counter striker. So that does worry me a little bit with Dustin. You know, if he gets too wild in some exchanges, he could get caught with counters from Islam. But also, I think that, you know, Islam has some opportunities to land on, or Dustin has some opportunities to land on Islam. So I don't know. We'll see. But strikes absorbed per minute, this is going to be a huge difference. And this is where Islam's defense and, you know, just the fact that he picks his shots and he's a little bit more patient. You know, I think that is why he doesn't get hit as much, because you're more vulnerable to getting hit when you're throwing punches. So with Dustin having a higher strikes landed per minute, that makes sense that he would have also a higher strikes absorbed per minute. So we'll just kind of compare the two. So Islam Makhachev is 1.27 strikes absorbed per minute, and Dustin Poirier is 4.36. So quite a big difference there. And defense, striking defense for Islam Makhachev is 61% and 53% for Dustin Poirier. Now let's look at the grappling. Takedowns average per 15 minutes for Islam is 3.17 and 1.33 for Dustin Poirier. Takedown accuracy is 60% for Islam and 36% for Dustin Poirier. Takedown defense is 90%. You're probably not going to take him down. Unless you're Arman Sarukian, Grant Dawson, you know, somebody like that, then maybe you can. Gamrot. Yeah, maybe you can take him down, but anybody else, no. I don't even think Charles Oliveira can really hang on the ground with him, which is crazy, I know, but yeah. No, he has a different type of pressure. It's different than Khabib. Like, a lot of people compare him to Khabib, and obviously they're very similar in a lot of ways because, you know, they train together, but I think that Islam is a much different fighter than Khabib, and they have a similar style of grappling, but the way that Islam applies it to MMA, I think, is a little bit different. And I think he might even be better, you know, in certain ways than Khabib. He's definitely better at striking. And I do think that his ability to control his opponents on the ground is excellent. So submission average for Islam Makhachev is 1.0, so just 1 per 15 minutes, and then 1.4 for Dustin Poirier, so slightly better submission game for Dustin. And Dustin's takedown defense is 63%, so it's definitely going to be easier for Islam to take him down than it's going to be for Dustin to take Islam down. I don't see any reason why he would even try to take Islam down, unless Islam is like completely depleted. If he has a bad weight cut, then maybe. But yeah, I think that's honestly going to be who wins the fight. Like, who wins the weight cut? I think if Islam has a bad weight cut and he's depleted like he was in the first Volkanovski fight, I think Dustin's going to win. I really do, because I think Dustin stylistically has a little bit of an edge over the version of Islam that fought Volkanovski, just because of his boxing and his ability to grapple. And Volkanovski's a great grappler too, but Dustin Poirier is bigger than Volkanovski, so I think that plays a big factor. Islam Makhachev is 5-5, or no, I'm sorry. Islam Makhachev is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Dustin Poirier is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He's coming off of a knockout win over Benoit Saint-Denis, and that was a really impressive performance. But I will say that overall the fight wasn't perfect. Like he made a lot of mistakes in that fight, and not to criticize him too harshly, because obviously he dug deep, he found the win, which shows how tough he is. But I just don't know if you can do that with a this version of Islam Makhachev. I don't know about that. And yeah, I just think that, I don't know. Well, we'll get to it in a minute. Let me take a look at the film study. So Makhachev versus Drew Dober. This was a fight that I rewatched because Drew Dober is a southpaw, just like Dustin Poirier. He's a lot different than Dustin in a lot of ways, but you know what? Drew Dober has really good boxing too. So I actually do like this comparison, but I think Dustin Poirier is better than Drew Dober. So I noticed in this fight, Islam did not strike with Drew Dober very much. And I don't blame him. Drew Dober has real knockout power. He has heavy hands. So I don't blame Islam for kind of relying more on his grappling. Also, this was when Islam was ranked number 14. So it was earlier in his career where he wasn't fully evolved yet. And I think they just had a game plan, followed the game plan, got the win. I think he started to take more risks in his career and start to show different areas of his game a little bit more now that he's champion. But we haven't really seen him strike with that many southpaws, like I said. So I don't know how this is going to go. It's kind of hard to tell because it is a lot different. But he did win that fight with grappling. He used the clinch to get it to the ground in round 3, and then he ended up getting, I think it was an arm triangle choke. So yeah, I mean, I think that could be a path to victory with Dustin. I think it's just going to be a lot harder for him to control Dustin on the ground. I think Dustin is going to give him a lot more pushback than Drew Dober did. And then I rewatched Saint-Denis versus Poirier, which I told you guys, a second ago, that was a fight where I thought that Dustin made some mistakes. He got taken down multiple times. He got stuck in the body lock, got his back taken in the first round. His boxing was very good in this fight, but in the clinch and on the ground made some mistakes, and that kind of cost him. If that fight were to go to decision, that would have really cost him in this matchup. So he is tough. Like I said, he pushed through adversity and he got the win, which is amazing. But in the second round, he made another pretty big mistake. He jumped the guillotine and then he got flattened out in the second round. So I just don't know if you can do that with Islam. I think Islam has such good control, better than Benoit. I think Islam has I don't know. Yeah. That worries me a lot. But maybe he just didn't have any respect for Benoit's grappling. Maybe he just knew, this guy's not going to submit me. And maybe that's fair. But I just don't think that that's going to go well with Islam if he resorts to that strategy again. So another thing that I've noticed about Dustin is he does kind of keep his hands low when he's in range. That does worry me too, especially with the way that Islam won his last fight via head kick knockout over Volkanovski. He is an inch shorter than Islam Makhachev too. So I don't know what the leg reach is. Actually, let me look at that. The leg reach is the same. So Islam could potentially find a home for that high kick, I think. It's just going to be different because when he landed the high kick on Volkanovski, obviously Volkanovski is orthodox. And when Justin Gaethje knocked Dustin Poirier out with the head kick, obviously he's orthodox, and that was a rear kick with the right leg, because obviously your left leg is your lead leg. So yeah, the rear leg. And Dustin blocked it too. He had his hand right where he needed it to be, but he broke through the guard and landed it. So yeah, Dustin just kind of keeps his hands too low. Also, that kind of worries me, because even if the even if that side, the left side, isn't available for Islam for that head kick, the other side could be open. And I think that just, yeah, that, I don't know. He's good at blocking. He's good at blocking and moving his head, but sometimes, he just doesn't see the shot coming. And that's what I'm worried about. So we'll see. I don't know. He could probably land it to the other side. That would be, I guess, Dustin's right side. So that's his lead side. And that'll be a little bit harder, I guess, because his lead hand will probably be out and he'll be able to kind of block it a little bit easier. But I do think there's some openings there too for, I don't know, whatever, whether it be like a hook or like a switch kick or I don't know. I think Islam is going to find something. And I think he's going to test the waters with Dustin early. I think he's going to try to land like some jabs at first, and then he's going to try to land some hooks. And then once he starts landing the hooks, then he's going to look for the head kick, I think. So we'll see. But he also could easily win this fight with grappling. I do think that who's going to win this? Because, like, also crazy stuff happens. Dustin could win. Dustin could knock him out. I think that would be the easiest way. I think the only way Dustin wins this fight is going to be with his boxing. I really don't think he's going to, like, jump the gilly and win it that way. I just don't. Yeah, so I'm taking Islam Makhachev in this one. I'm just going to say decision because I really don't want to see Dustin Poirier get knocked out again. So let's please go to decision. Please. And who knows? Maybe Dustin wins a decision. I don't know. I don't think so, but and I hate to doubt Dustin Poirier. It's just Islam is that good, and I can't sit here in denial of my own beliefs, of how much I've watched the sport, how much I've watched these fighters. And I can't sit here and confidently say, I think Dustin's going to win, and I want to. But I just don't. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. I hope I am. But that's based on the film study that I did, based on the statistics, everything. It just all points to Islam winning the fight. So I got to go with Islam. Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. This one's really hard to predict too, because I really like both of these fighters and I really want Paulo Costa to get a win. The fight with Robert Whittaker, he almost won that fight. And I'm glad Robert Whittaker won because I'm a big Robert Whittaker fan too. But yeah. So let's look at the tail of the tape, if you will. So Sean Strickland is 28-6, and Paulo Costa is 14-3. So Sean has quite a bit more experience. Both of them have been in a lot of 5-round fights. I would say Sean's definitely been in more. Sean's been in a lot of 5-round fights, and he's a great 5-round fighter. I think that's why he gets so many 5-round opportunities. Because this fight is going to be 5 rounds, even though it's a co-main event and it's a non-title fight. And I'm wondering if maybe that was part of the delay with the contract. Maybe Sean wanted this fight to be 5 rounds and originally they didn't want to. I don't know. But I definitely think that a 5-round fight favors Sean. I think that Sean Strickland is a 5-round fighter. I think that his style being so boxing oriented and just the way that he moves, the way that his pace is designed for 5 rounds. Gosh, hold on. So yeah, so I think Sean's style just plays really well into a 5-round fight. I think that he kind of starts to take over the more the fight goes on a lot of times, depending on the matchup. I think that Sean's style just with he really does fight kind of like a boxer. And I love that about Sean because I love boxing. But but Sean does it in a way, he applies it to MMA so beautifully. And he does it with just kind of really simplifying striking. And he uses some teep kicks. He throws leg kicks. He throws basic kicks. He's not throwing spinning back kicks. He's not throwing, crazy tomahawk elbows. He's not throwing anything crazy. He's really simplified his striking. And I actually, sometimes it's more interesting to watch a very simplified version of striking than watching like Wonder Boy, for example. And I love watching Wonder Boy, of course. But sometimes it's just really, I love when people can just do a few things extremely well. And Sean, the way that he fights, it's like that's probably how he spars. And I don't know. I respect it. But it is an interesting style. His average fight time is 15 minutes and 12 seconds. Paulo Costa's average fight time is 11 minutes and 9 seconds. They're both 6'1", and obviously this is at 185. Sean Strickland has a 76-inch reach, and Paulo Costa has a 72-inch reach. They are both orthodox fighters. Trying to think here. So, strikes landed per minute. Yeah, let's look at the striking statistics. So, strikes landed per minute, 5.91 for Sean Strickland and 6.2 for Paulo Costa. Pretty high for both of them. Striking accuracy, 41% for Sean, 58% for Paulo. So Paulo has higher striking accuracy, which makes sense. I think Sean just throws more volume, so he doesn't land all of his shots. Also, these statistics, who knows how accurate they are, but Sean's sometimes very accurate, sometimes not. He's not super consistent in that area, I would say. Strikes absorbed per minute. This is where Sean has a big advantage, is the defense. Sean has much better defense than Paulo. His strikes absorbed per minute is 4.33, and for Paulo, it is 6.38. And defense. So defense is 62%, and for Paulo is 47%. So big difference in the defense. And I think that's where Sean has a huge advantage against Paulo Costa. I think that his ability to block, parry, and move his head and do his shoulder roll when he's in the Philly shell, I think that works extremely well for Sean in avoiding strikes, and he just barely gets out of the way. He uses a lot of very small movements, and I think that's going to work really well for him because, Paulo Costa, he does have very technical kickboxing, deceivingly technical kickboxing. But, he does tend to use a little bit more bigger movements and telegraph a little bit more. So I think that is going to work extremely well for Sean. But he does have power. Paulo does have heavy hands, and he does have very good high kicks. The high kick is what I worry about with Sean. If Sean gets hit with one of those high kicks, or maybe a couple of them, I think he could get knocked out. So if Paulo wins, I think it's going to be a knockout. If Sean wins, I think it's going to be a decision. I don't think he's going to finish Paulo Costa. Sean Strickland doesn't even really have a strong finishing ability in this division, I don't think. He's done it before. He did it with Abus. He's finished people, but it's not common. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think you need to finish fights to be a good fighter. I think that's ridiculous. And I hate that that's so important, for selecting talent. I hate that because it puts so much pressure on fighters to go out there and just destroy people, which is obviously what you want to do. But there are some fighters that are kind of more of a martial artist, and they want to kind of put on a show. And I don't know, everyone has their own style, and they all work extremely well together. So I don't know, I'm going on so many tangents today, but anyways. So the grappling. So takedown average per 15 minutes for Sean Strickland is 0.85 and 0.45 for Paulo. I don't think we're going to see probably hardly any grappling in this fight. Both of these guys are going to want to conserve energy. This is a 5-round fight. Neither of them are notorious for their grappling. So I would say probably best for each of them to just avoid taking this to the mat. I don't think there's any reason to take it to the mat. And if it goes to the ground, I would probably favor Paulo. Honestly, I would probably favor him on the ground. But I don't think it's going to go there. I think they both are going to want to conserve energy because Paulo Costa, he is very, very big and muscle bound. He cuts a lot of weight. So I don't think he's going to want to get in a 5-round wrestling match with Sean. But Sean, he also likes to fight his fight. And his fight is not grappling. So. And I love that for Sean. I like that Sean forces people to fight the way that he wants to fight. It's great. He forces them to fight at his pace. He forces them to fight, standing up. He doesn't let you take him down. Like you might take him down for a second, but you're not going to keep him there unless you're a highly skilled grappler. So yeah, so getting back to last couple performances, we'll just look at Sean Strickland. His last fight was a loss to Duplessis. He lost the title, and before that, he won the title against Adesanya. Huge upset. Nobody was expecting that. And then Paulo Costa, like I said earlier, he lost to Whitaker. Before that, he had the win over Luke Rockhold. It's Luke Rockhold. I don't know how notable that win is. If you compare the two, their last 5 fights, Sean Strickland has had a much more impressive resume in his last 5 fights. But that's not completely, I'm not saying it's going to be like completely one-sided. I think this is going to be a competitive fight. In this high of a level, that's what you want. You want competitive fights. So I'm just going to kind of go through some things that I noticed on film. Obviously, I've already done a fair amount of film study on Sean, so I don't want to go too repetitive because I'm already repeating a lot of things I've already said. But Costa versus Whitaker, this fight was really interesting. It went exactly how I expected because I knew that Paulo was going to land those head kicks. I just didn't know if Robert's chin was going to hold up. So that was what I was kind of worried about. But it did. What I think this fight tells me is that Costa is going to get hit with a lot of jabs and early. He is going to get hit with a lot of them. But if he lands the head kick he landed on Whitaker, I think he will finish this fight. And then I kind of tried to find a fighter that was more similar to Costa that Strickland has fought. I couldn't really find anybody that Costa's fought that fights like Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland's very unique, so that it makes sense. But Strickland versus Cannonier, I thought was a more similar fight to this one, and I think it will probably end in a similar result. I think it might be like a split decision or something like that. But Cannonier, he honestly got kind of frustrated with Sean's defense, and this is a real thing. Like when you spar with people, and if your defense is on point and they can't hit you, it literally frustrates people. And they'll just start swinging for the fences. Like they just get so mad because they cannot hit you. And, that's what you want. You want good defense is important. You got to protect your brain. Like not everybody needs to go brain dead because they're fighting. This... And like I said, this is a very similar fight to Costa, in my opinion. I think Costa has more tools available than Cannonier, as far as like his techniques. But I don't know. Strickland outlanded him in every single round. He did lose this fight, but it was a split decision. It was very controversial. But I do think that Sean still is a better 5-round fighter than a 3-round fighter. And even though he lost this fight, I thought he won. I don't know. It was close. It was a close fight, but I thought Sean edged it. So in Sean's style, when you fight that way, you're going to find yourself in those situations where you're just going to be on the wrong side or the right side of a controversial decision. The decision with him and Drakus was very controversial. So yeah, I think that this is going to probably be another controversial decision, or Paulo Costa is going to knock him out. Those are the two scenarios that I can see playing out in my head. And what I am leaning toward is Strickland by decision. So I'm going to predict that Sean Strickland wins this fight via decision. And that is my prediction for the co-main event. So let's move on. What is next here? Let's see. Kevin Holland versus Michael Olejniczak. This is an interesting fight. I'm taking Kevin Holland, and I don't know. I just haven't been blown away by Olejniczak. I mean, he's got some good wins. You know, he had the win over Chidi Njokuani, who's very talented. He had the win over Cody Brundage, who just fought on the main card of UFC 300. He has the win over Sam Alvey. I mean, who hasn't beat Sam Alvey? Let's be honest. So Kevin Holland is coming off the loss to Michael Venom Page. That fight was a really frustrating fight for him because he couldn't hit Michael Venom Page, because Michael Venom Page just kind of darts in and out with his karate style. So, and I like it. It's fun to watch. It's cool, but you know, I can see how that would be frustrating. And then before that, he had the loss to Jack Della Maddalena. That was a very close fight, though. He had the win over Michael Chiesa. That was really impressive. And then the win over Ponzinibbio. And then before that, he had the loss to Stephen Thompson. Olejniczak is coming off of a loss to Alex Pereira, who is currently a double champion. So no shame in that loss. He also has the loss to Cal Bahayo. So no shame in that one either. I mean, he's coming off a very impressive performance. So not terrible losses. I just don't think he has as good of wins as Kevin Holland overall in their career. I've been more impressed with Kevin Holland, and I think that he has better striking. I don't know, but Olejniczak is a southpaw, and you know, it does make it a little interesting. I just think, you know, with Kevin's reach and his height, it's just, I think he's going to give Olejniczak a lot of problems. I think the only way that Olejniczak wins this fight is if he can, like, catch Kevin Holland, but I don't know. I mean, he might be able to win a decision because Kevin Holland does tend to lose decisions a lot, so that, you know, he could win that way. But I think Kevin Holland might get a knockout here. So that's what I think. But I always pick Kevin Holland. I've never picked against Kevin Holland, I don't think, ever. Like, I don't know why. I just can't. I love Kevin Holland's great. He's great. He's good on the ground. He's good on the feet. Yeah. Gelton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. Gelton Almeida is going to win this fight, and I will tell you why right now. Alexander Romanov has 20% takedown defense. Next fight. Randy Brown versus Zaleski dos Santos. Oh, interesting. I'm going to pick Randy Brown for the same reason I picked Kevin Holland. He's got 78-inch reach, and he's 6'3", and he does have really good striking. I really like Randy Brown. He's on a 2-fight win streak. So, yeah. I like his chances in this fight, actually. I don't know. I didn't see anything that really overwhelmed me, like got me really excited with Zaleski dos Santos. I think he's good. He's very good. But I think that I'm getting them mixed up now. Randy Brown, I think, is the better striker. Cesar Almeida versus Roman Kopylov. Is Cesar Almeida related to Gelton Almeida? That would be really interesting. I have no idea. He's coming off a win over Dylan Budka. Dylan Budka's really good. That's a good win. I don't know about this one. I really like Roman Kopylov. I think he's really good. He's coming off of the loss to Fluffy. Anthony Hernandez, I think. Yeah. Fluffy. He's coming off the loss, rear naked choke. And then before that, he was coming off of a knockout win over Josh Fremd. I don't know. I don't know about this fight. He's a southpaw. I'm a southpaw, so I'm just going to pick him, Roman Kopylov, via knockout. Okay, Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki. Grant Dawson all the way. Grant Dawson is a very talented grappler. He lost the fight to Bobby Green. He got caught. He got knocked out. Whatever. He's very good still. Do not let that loss fool you. Grant Dawson is a machine on the ground. He's just got to get it to the ground. If he gets it to the ground, Joe Selecki is, done for. If he can get it to the ground every round, yeah, he's going to win. So, because Grant Dawson, once he gets you to the ground, like, you're there. You're there. You're not going anywhere. I promise you, you're not. Like, you're not. He has some of the best ground control in the UFC I've ever seen. So, yeah. So if Joe Selecki can avoid getting taken down, then he'll be fine. And he could probably win the fight in the striking. But Grant Dawson, yeah, if he gets you down, you are not getting back up. You're not. Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. So I really like Phil Rowe. I just have a feeling about him. I mean, I know he's coming off the loss to Neil Magny. I wasn't expecting that. I thought he was going to beat Neil Magny. This is kind of a hard one to call. Phil Rowe, 6'3", 80-inch reach. Jake Matthews is 5'11", 73-inch reach. I like Jake Matthews too. Jake Matthews is really good. I just think that Phil Rowe, for some reason, I feel like he's going to win this fight. I'm going with Phil Rowe. I don't know how. I'm just going with Phil Rowe. Just screw it. Nico Price versus Alex Morono. This is one of Phil Rowe's more recent opponents. And Phil Rowe did beat Nico Price, and Nico Price is on a 2-fight losing streak. But his last fight was against Lawler, so, no shame in that. Let's see here. So his record is 15-7. Alex Morono's record is 24-9. I think Alex Morono is a better fighter, but Nico Price is so non-traditional with the way that he fights, and he's very rangy. He's 6 foot tall and he has a 76-inch reach, so he's not that much taller than Morono, but his reach is longer, and he kind of he's very good at using it. Very good at using his reach. So that is one thing that I think could work really well for him in the striking. I don't know. This is a really hard fight to predict just because all of Nico Price's fights are hard to predict. He's very unique. So I think that, does Morono have the ability to beat Nico Price? Absolutely. But there is a chance that Nico Price could win this fight. So it's not completely Alex Morono's just going to run right through him. No, Nico Price is very hard to prepare for. But I do think I'm going to take Alex Morono in this one by decision. And then Mickey Gall versus Basile Hafez. I'm not familiar with Basile very much. I think I follow him on Instagram. I think I've seen maybe I saw his fight before. Oh yeah, he fought JDM. Okay, yes. I remember this guy. So he hasn't been in the UFC very long, but he is very good. He's 8-3-1. Mickey Gall is 7-5. Mickey Gall does have a height and reach advantage, but I do think at the end of the day, I am going to go with Basile just because, I don't know. I just have a feeling. Eileen Perez versus Jocelyn Edwards. This fight is great. They already have beef. Jocelyn Edwards sucker punched Eileen Perez at the UFC PI, I believe, at some point. So they have beef, and I guess they're going to settle it on Saturday. The average fight time for Eileen Perez is 13 minutes and 18 seconds, 15 minutes for Jocelyn Edwards. I feel like Eileen has a really good ground game, but I do think that Jocelyn probably has a little bit of an edge in the striking. Yeah, I would say grappling I would give to Eileen, and then striking I would give to Jocelyn, but I think I'm going to take Eileen Perez. This fight's kind of hard to predict too. I don't really know who's going to win that confidently, but I'm leaning toward Perez just because I think she has better ground game, and I think she's going to use it. Okay, this name, I'm going to try to pronounce it. Please don't come for me if I pronounce it wrong. Tumen Demembera. I don't know. I don't know. Versus Andre Lima. Andre Lima is the one that got bit. I actually thought he was doing really well in that fight before he got bit, and I think he's very talented. I don't know much about his opponent, I'll be honest. But his opponent has a good record. They're both undefeated. They're both 8-0. So somebody is going to have their first loss on this one. But I think I'm going to take Andre Lima. I was just really impressed with him in his last couple fights, and I'm a fan, so yeah, I'll pick him in that one. We'll see how I do on this. I don't know. I feel like some of these fights are just really, I mean, it's MMA. I say this every time I do predictions. It's MMA. Like, these are not absolutes. There are some fights that I think are pretty easy to predict. One of those fights is Shelton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. But I could be totally wrong in that too. And Romanov can land a head kick and knock him out. Like, this is the stuff that happens. It's heavyweight, you know? Heavyweight crazy stuff happens. A lot of people thought Derek Lewis was going to lose to Nascimento. I'm like, are you guys out of your mind? Derek Lewis defies all odds, all laws of MMA. Not odds. He defies all the laws of MMA and all the laws of physics. But anyways, yeah, so those are my picks. Sorry if I'm wrong, but not really sorry. I mean, I'm usually always going to get at least like 2 or 3 wrong, but I usually get most of them right. I usually get like the main card. I usually get most of those right. But we'll see. I don't know. This is hard because I feel like a lot of these fights could go either way. Like Sean Strickland, Paulo Costa. That's a competitive fight. You know, I think it's more competitive than people think. And even though, well, I mean, they're both coming off a loss. Sean Strickland's loss is definitely a better loss than Paulo just because of the timing. If this were 2 years ago, Paulo would probably be hyped up more in this fight because it'd be like, whoa, he just fought Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is a champion. And, you know, Dracus is a champion, but I still think Robert Whittaker is a better fighter than Dracus, even though Dracus beat him. So it's like, you know, MMA math, it doesn't work, whatever. I saw that Carlos Ulberg is going to be a replacement for Khalil Roundtree in his fight with Jamal Hill. So Jamal Hill versus Carlos Ulberg is going to be taking place at UFC 303 International Fight Week. That is going to be a very interesting fight. I think Carlos Ulberg is going to win by knockout. I think he's going to find a home for the left hook, just like Alex Pereira did. And I think it's going to be lights out for Jamal Hill. I really like Jamal Hill. If he wasn't coming off of a knockout loss and a ruptured Achilles tendon, then maybe I would have a different opinion on this fight. I definitely probably would, because I think that Jamal Hill has more 5-round experience than, or I wouldn't say 5-round experience. I would say more like elite level experience than Carlos Ulberg. They have, honestly, really not a huge difference in experience in the UFC. It's just who they've been fighting. Jamal Hill has been fighting tougher opponents. He's been fighting the higher caliber opponents than Carlos Ulberg. So without the injury, without the knockout, then I probably would pick Jamal Hill. And I would probably think that Jamal Hill would use all areas of his martial arts game. He would probably use his wrestling, his grappling, his striking, his, you know, all the things that he does really well. But since he's coming off the knockout loss so soon, I mean, that was only, a couple months ago that he got knocked out by Alex Pereira. I mean, that's a bad knockout. It's really bad. And before that, you know, he had that injury. He ruptured his Achilles tendon. It hasn't even been a year since that happened yet. So that's really concerning to me. And I think that he just has the odds stacked against him in this one. And I think that Carlos Ulberg is going to, he's going to find a home for that left hook. And I think he's going to knock him out. So that's my prediction for that. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all the support. And I'm very excited for the future. I'm very excited for everything that I have going on right now. It's just freaking amazing, everything that I'm doing. Yeah, awesome. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet. and tune in next week for the next episode. See you guys.